Ready for game
Who's
3?
so Wesley?
Wesley so. And Hikaru picked out the white pieces in the drawing of colors. And it's start game. Hikaru starts with c4.
I mean, a huge advantage for Nakamura to get the white pieces in this critical final third game. If they do not have a decisive result here, they go on to have an extensive beer pong match to see who goes on to Millionaire Monday. No, but really they actually have two blitz games and then an Armageddon if that is still tied. But really a huge advantage for Nakamura to have the white pieces against Wesley So. But Wesley does not seem phased at all in this early going.
Let's not forget the first game that Hikaru played with white pieces, Robert. Wesley got a huge advantage very quickly in the game.
Yeah, he did, and Wesley's been outplaying Hikaru really in both games so far. Hikaru did escape in the second game. Wesley did not prove his advantage to be too significant. I think he misplayed it some steps, but now Hikaru is going to try to apply pressure, and I like the opening choice by Nakamura. He's making it simple for him. He's developing his pieces, expanding in the center, exactly what you want to see in a rapid game.
Right, nothing too crazy because Wesley seemed to be taking advantage of that in the last two games. I also like the way Hikaru has started this match, and I feel that this is going to be one of those games where white is going to get a slight advantage and he's going to keep pushing till Wesley's time goes low.
And very importantly, Hikaru is making the moves instantly instead of spending 2-3 minutes in the early stages, because you cannot afford that. We've seen it in many occasions that when you get down in time trouble, that's when you lose, not even necessarily on the board. So here, Hikaru is moving quicker than Wesley is, and it looks like Wesley's not familiar with this opening, which is surprising because he jumped into it so quickly. But here, a move like bishop to e7 is playable. Perhaps there are some other moves as well, like bishop to d7, because there's a lot of stuff happening on this diagonal. For example, knight takes d5. I simply make the move a6, I think is possible. Knight b4 also looks very tricky. Maybe I'm just blundering things all over, but it's getting very messy very quickly. So I'm not sure what's going on in the game. I mean, you don't want to give it that pawn, so maybe bishop e7 makes the
That's what he's gone
sense.
for, Robert. He's played bishop to e7.
And Hikaru is
trying to remember probably what it was that he's prepared. He's gone for knight to e2.
No, this position is very nice for white, for sure. Just nice center, a lead in development. I mean, you can castle it. Just spatial advantage is huge. He castled for black. I'm sure white's going to, white castled immediately as a response. And now perhaps bishop f5 is an idea for black to keep that knight on e4. Solid in the center. I mean, bishop f5 looks so natural here. Developing the piece.
Also just playing, bishop f5. Black's got ideas of going f6 as well, just chomping away at the white center. That's a typical motif in these positions. Can't really do it straight away because the knight on e4 is a bit weak, so that's why he went bishop f5. Bishop e3 was the reply by Nakamura, just getting his pieces out in a very sensible fashion. And now Wesley's got to find a decent move.
I'm tempted by knight b4 here.
Yeah.
It looks like he went knight a5 if I'm not mistaken, and I don't like that at all.
That's such a weird move.
Knight b4 at least had a target of c2. You can make a move like c6 or a6 to kick that bishop away. But if we go back here, knight a5 was indeed played, and it's so awkward because you don't really want to make this knight c4 move. I think knight takes e4. Well, if you take with the bishop on e4, I simply just start launching my pawns down the f-file. I mean, this is looking very good for Nakamura, and more importantly, it's the exact position that he likes to play. He's so successful in these type of lines. He did go knight takes e4 here, so he is really trying to mix things up. If the pawn takes on e4, wouldn't like that, so he went bishop takes e4. Knight g3 looks so good. I mean, it's just a clear advantage for white. He's going to go at knight g3. He did make the move knight g3 after bishop e4, and to me, white is just really doing superbly.
I really like white's position as well. The whole plan of just moving these pawns forward with f4, f5 at some point is going to be very dangerous for black. And what is knight a5? Why put that knight in the corner of the board? I mean, what does he want from... I just don't understand this move at all.
Yeah, the knight looks stupid out there.
I'm so perplexed by that move. I can't imagine him making that in a normal game. I don't know if it's tiredness or whether he's just trying to be creative. but his position now, it's just rotten. It's just horrible. A6 kicking the bishop, that's a temporary move. You can come back to E2 without any issues. Then what do you do with this guy in the middle of the board? If it comes back to G6, you're launching Freddy the F-pawn up the board, and then F5's already threatening to win a piece. Probably black has to play something disgusting like F6 or F5, and then, you know, if you play F5, my goodness, you don't even have to worry. This is a protected passed pawn on E5. The bishop on G6 is bad. The bishop on E7 is not much better. You can play rook C1. You can play really calmly. And this has just gone terribly, terribly wrong for Wesley. I don't know.
Nakamura has gone bishop D3 though.
Yeah, I don't understand that move either. Both players are
strange moves happening here.
Yeah, why would you trade your better bishop for the one that was about to go to G6 and allow you to launch the pawns? I think that Nakamura is still anticipating that F4, F5, etc. will be great for him. But I mean, I just don't understand it. Knight C4 was played, forcing bishop to C1 to protect both the bishop on E3 and the pawn on B2. And now the move F6 was played here. And I'm not positive I love that move. The move B3 is tempting for white, kicking this knight out from C4. If you go back, let's say, to B6, well, maybe I can even think about going E6 myself. And it's not looking very comfortable for black. Once I get my pawn to sit on E6, it's going to be hard to capture it. There's no way to surround it. Eventually, my knight can come to F5. I can also just go with my F pawn to F5, and I can easily protect it. For example, rook E8, F4, bishop D6, F5. This is looking very ugly for black. Not losing yet, but a protected passed pawn deep in black's position. So he did just go knight to B6. He went B3, knight B6. And I would be very surprised here if Hikaru did not make the move pawn to E6.
Well,
I also feel that is the only move to fight for some advantage, because obviously if you simplify things in the center, black is doing completely fine.
I'm not totally sure about that, Tony. I think you can still go bishop B2 here. And what do you do? Do you really want to take on E5? Well, he played E6. I think that is the best move. I'm not sure it was the only move, but it is clearly a very good move. And Wesley he's really lost the plot in this game. All of his moves have been weird. He's now finding himself in a super passive position. And how does he even defend this knight coming to F5? You know, Kasparov once said a knight on F5 is worth a pawn. Well, if Nakamura wins, it's actually worth like 18 grand straight up, minimum. So this guy on F5, once it gets there, it really is difficult to dislodge. You never want to go G6 because you weaken the king position. And the knight, it just threatens so much from this F5 square against a castle king. The amount of Kasparov games where his knights have got to F5, if you've ever studied his games, you'll know that. If you haven't studied some of Kasparov's games, you're really missing out, because talking about attacking dynamic chess, there is nobody better, especially Kasparov from the 80s. I was fortunate enough to speak to Magnus Carlsen about this just before he became world champion in Chennai. I was at dinner with him and I was talking about a book he had on the table, Garry Kasparov's great predecessors. And he said, you know, he was just such a beast in these positions. And Nakamura's got an echo of Kasparov in him. Nakamura is so gifted in these positions. I believe we've had a move, queen to D6.
But that looks like an awful move, because now it's inviting knight F5. For example,
what on earth
rook
is that
E1,
move?
Oh my.
G6 looks forced now because you invited me out to lunch with knight F5.
And then bishop H6 and knight F5 is coming anyway.
Exactly. Bishop H6, rook E8, I can go knight F5, but I also can just go F4, F5. I can think about going H4, H5. There are so many different options here. I think F4 is the best move, because after F5, now I capture on F5.
And queen
Game
G3.
over. You get checkmated very simply by my queen coming down to G7. So unfortunately for Wesley, queen D, everything seems to be going wrong. Queen D6 makes no sense, because the pawn obviously is going to be defended by the move rook to E1, followed by knight F5 if you're not careful. So G6 is more or less forced. And after bishop H6, rook E8, pawn to F4, I think black is in so much trouble.
He's gone rook E1.
He's played
of course
rook
he's
E1.
found this. I just feel that in last couple of moves, Wesley has consistently placed his pieces on the wrong squares. from the knight to c6, he's moved it to b6, and queen d6, just inviting knight f5.
And he's gone g6, so
Bishop
he's
h6.
uninviting that knight from f5, but he is making
Bishop
a
h6.
home for that bishop on h6. That bishop will sleep there for at least 15 moves, I think. And after f4, f5, there's going to be bombardment on the king side. And the statistics you see on the screen, 85% in white's favor, 15% for black. I mean, this is just so one-sided. It is, Wesley so must feel awful considering the first two games, he had significant edge in both. And now he's really just in grave danger of losing.
And f4.
F4, this is Nakamura's dream position.
Absolutely.
After f4, f5 is coming. Could Hikaru have asked, could he have begged for a better position than this?
And he's not going to let go of this. Like you were saying, Robert, the first two games, Wesley had a really good advantage,
King
but he
h8.
could make nothing of it.
King h8, a move that I don't comprehend. Perhaps Hikaru...
Just f5.
Yeah.
When you've said A, say B. That's not the right. You get my drift. It's nearly 11 o'clock. Oh, it's past 11 o'clock at night. But after f5, what do you do with black here? You are in a horrific state. g5 might be the idea to try and block things up, but then knight h5 and bishop g7 check is a threat.
And rook g8 looks like it protects the pawn, but unfortunately you have to take with the rook on g6. If pawn takes g6, knight f5 is a killer shot.
He's played g5. Ugh.
Ugh.
Somebody get me a bucket. That's just so gross. g5.
It is tragic.
And what do you do against knight h5?
Knight
just out of
h5 looks
interest?
great. You're also threatening at some points to sacrifice your bishop. You're really threatening bishop g7 checks. So you have to go rook g8. And maybe I just go h4 here and just start breaking open the h file. For example, after gh3, I simply go queen h3, gobble up on h4. And
Hikaru's gone knight h5. He's not going to let go of this opportunity. This is exactly the kind of position that Hikaru loves to play, Robert.
absolutely. And you know, sometimes he can go wrong in these type of positions. It's not always the easiest. But he's, oh, look how talented he is. h4, he barely had to think about it.
He's just...
And then we look at the clock as well. Hikaru is well up on the clock. He has a dominating position. It's just very, very one-sided. He's up a minute, and that's in a very important minute because it's much more difficult to play with black here. Sometimes the side that has the advantage, it's more difficult to find the exact right moves. Here, it's hard to find moves for black that just survive, period. So Wesley So, the defending Millionaire Chess Open champion, is in some severe trouble, and he knows it. Look at Hikaru Nakamura, arms folded. He's in that super confident position you see when you know that you're in charge. And Wesley So is picking at his face, adjusting his shirt a little bit. He doesn't know what to do here because whether you go g4, which really doesn't look like a move you want to make because firstly, your pawns on this side of the board are very, very weak. You can always just remove your bishop from the h6 square, and actually an idea is to reroute it over to the queen side. You've accomplished a lot on the king side. It's closed down the protected passed pawn on e6. I mean, this is just disgusting. It's so ugly for black.
This is every black piece is badly placed. The knight on b6 is dominated by a mere pawn. Two pawns, I should say. The pawn on e6, pawn on b3. The bishop on e7 is a dead piece of wood. The queen on d6, don't know what she's doing over there. She needs to get back home, start cooking up a storm elsewhere because doing nothing over there. The rook on g8, well, not really doing, I mean, just, and look at this pawn on e6. It's just a majestic passed pawn. And h4, to play it so quickly, that just shows unbelievable class. I mean, unbelievable level understanding of chess. A lot of players would think there, make some other move. He just played h4 so quickly. He understood that his pieces needed squares. A piece on f4 needed a square. Bishop needed a retreat square. G takes h4 was getting met by queen h3. No fear. Just win on. I mean, how do you beat players like Wesley So like this so easily? Well, it's just a next level stuff. And if Nakamura does go through, I think you'd be absolutely bonkers to bet against him in a rapid format going into Millionaire Monday. And, you know, he might say, well, his gamble a little earlier today, which feels like a million years ago now, paid off. remains to be seen. But you know, tomorrow we're going to have so much action. It's going to be beautiful. I can't wait. Wesley So, in the meantime, did play the move G4. I think, practically speaking, that's the right decision because at least you keep things closed for the minute. Still, the position is absolutely disgusting. Rook F1 by Nakamura. He doesn't have to rush. And now Wesley So is beginning Operation improve at least some of my pieces. Queen D8. The idea of that is that he wants to play knight to C8, down to D6, and then probably stick it into E4. At least he'll have a piece in his opponent's territory, well, more than just a pawn at least. But still, the position is just disgustingly bad, and the computer is going bonkers for this. Well, actually, it didn't like Rook F1 that much. Didn't like Rook F1 that much. So what did it like instead of that? Well, it liked the move Queen to C3 or Bishop to D2, as you said, Robert. But kudos to Wesley for finding what I think is a decent move, G4 there. You have to block it up. You have to try and, you know, hold on. It's not going to be easy if a knight gets to E4 either. It's still horrible, but maybe
I actually really
some
like
chances.
this plan of Queen D8, Knight C8, Knight D6. I mean, yeah, it's a great resource to find in this position. It's not really clear. There's no, at least there's no immediate way to lose this position. And yeah, that knight will be way better on E4 than on B6. And if he succeeds in doing that, I don't think that this position is going to be so bad for black anymore.
The problem I see is that once you bring your knight to D6, I bring my knight to G3 and ask you what next. You can't protect that E4 square anymore. And the huge problem resides in the fact the pawn on E6 cannot be touched. It's got his best friend on F5 protecting it. Once you do anything for black, knight C8, knight D6, I'll give you all these moves. I will stop your one plan by going knight to G3. I will try to improve my position potentially by ganging up on this G pawn. Eventually I can go rook F4, queen E2, and that's why Nakamura went rook F1. His idea was simply to get into the action with rook F4, and here's the current position. Hikaru Nakamura is wisely spending some of his time because you don't want to rush. You don't want to do anything brash and hope, you know, worry that you make one mistake and all your advantage is gone. So a move like, you know, knight G3 at the right moment is good. A move like, I mean, I really am tempted to go rook F4, but maybe queen E8 is possible, but I mean, knight G3, it just, even if you somehow win my rook for your bishop, you still are so backwards. Like, I would be very willing to sacrifice. And it looks like Hikaru Nakamura in the initial position after queen to D8, we'll just back up here to this position, he made the move queen to E2, and his idea is to come after this G pawn, and queen E2 was played. So, I don't know, Hikaru's position is still very, very good. A move like queen E8 to attack the knight on H5, you simply retreat. And again, I'm simply trying to get into the action here. And a move like bishop D6 never actually scares me. So unfortunately for Wesley, even if he wins some material, his position still stinks. I'm really liking Hikaru's chances. The 71% on screen, I would bump that up to 80%. He did go queen E8. He found the move. Knight G3 is forced here because well, you can go knight F4, but that's not the square it wants to be on. Knight G3 covers this vital E4 square, whereas knight F4, well, you're not threatening anything. I'll just go C6 myself.
Oh, he played knight F4.
Played knight F4. Move
that's very surprising.
Wait, actually, I have an idea, guys. I think that maybe at some point I can go H5 and go knight to G6.
Oh
That would be absolutely filthy. I just thought of it right here, but it makes a lot of sense. If I start with the move H5, I'm not sure how you're going to stop me from throwing my knight into G6. You can try to bring your bishop back to F8. Maybe I'll just capture on F8. And now I have a very clear pass pawn on E6. Maybe I'm rushing things with this whole knight G6 idea. H5 maybe have been a bit too soon, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on, is this H5 move. And instead of going for this H5 idea after bishop D6, simply rook to E1, inviting you to capture on F4. I'll just take with the bishop, and I'm just dominating you on both flanks. It's just really, really ugly for black.
That pawn on E6 is a lifelong problem for Wesley here. There's nothing, I mean, any position, white is going to have an advantage just simply because there's a pawn on E6. And this G4 pawn is going to also be suffering for a long time.
Looks like he went C6 here, hoping to perhaps use this diagonal or something. But the move E7 is very tempting right now because I've doubled up my pieces on the E file. it's a very important. When you have a pawn on the 6th rank, you always have to consider pushing it. And I think I've heard that around 1 in 5 of the time is always a good move. And here knight c8 was played, but the move bishop f8 just locks this pawn in on e7.
Oh, bishop f8 is so beautiful.
Oh, it's just ugly. And now I can just do whatever I want. You can't touch my e7 pawn. So bishop f8 will be played, I'm sure. I mean, after knight c8.
No.
Perhaps he was a queen e6. He did go
He's
queen
gone
e6.
queen e6.
Queen e6 is also a good move. The problem with bishop takes e7 is, well, a lot of things. One, I can just go knight to d3, and black has no moves. I mean, that's very unfortunate for black. A move like queen d8, I just go into f7.
Oh my
Your
goodness.
pieces are just stuck. It's really disgusting. A move like bishop to d6 runs into the beautiful rook to e8.
Oh.
If you take with the rook on e8, I just checkmate you in one move on g7. If you take with the queen, I've distracted your queen from this d8 square. And now after rook g7, of course, I give you a checkmate. So
feed me.
queen e6 is actually a great move. Bishop f8 was very tempting. He just didn't want to give any chances.
Bishop takes e7.
And he's gone h5.
So bishop e7, you went h5. Okay, it's just completely winning. So he's making these moves very quickly. And look at him twirling that pawn. I believe that's a U.S. championship ring on his finger right there. And he's twirling the pawn, and that's just adding insult to injury. It's just very clear that he's dominating this position. Wesley So, 2% chance. It's more like 0.00002% chance. He's absolutely lost here. And the move h5 is something, we thought of a couple moves ago, but this knight wants to find its home on g6. And if that h file opens up, oof, that's brutal.
But I've got to give it to Hikaru that when he got a good position, he went for it. Every move he played made his position stronger, which is something that Wesley failed to do in the last 2 games, Robert.
Yeah, Wesley did fail to do that in some of these games here in rounds. Like you said, in game 1 and game 2, Wesley certainly was favored on the board. He was playing very excellent chess, but he collapsed in the biggest moment, perhaps. Well, I won't say of his career because he did win Millionaire Chess 1, so that was a huge event. But this tournament is much stronger than it was last year. Every time Millionaire Chess is going to improve, more players like Hikaru Nakamura, Fabiano Caruana will enter the fray. But unfortunately for Wesley So, in one of the biggest moments of his young career, he has faltered. He didn't complete the advantages he gained in the first 2 games. And now in the crucial, the critical, the deciding game 3, his position is in shambles. And look at him. He just, that hand to the head, that's frustration there. And it looks like he has made a move. It looks like the pawn went up to b5, or on the wrong side of the board. He goes b5, and now knight g6 will end the game pretty much on the spot. After h takes g6, f takes g6 even. Now I'm threatening things like rook takes f6. It's just disgusting. It's so ugly here. The pass pawn on g6 is another protected passer, and Hikaru doesn't miss things like this. After the move b5, any move should win because b5 doesn't actually threaten a single thing. And he wants to go knight g6, and there it is. Knight g6 check.
This is just
amazing.
This is
h takes, and his idea is actually king f2, rook h1, deliver this bishop on f8 with mate. A move like knight d6 might be the best move, but if that's your best shot, you know you're in trouble because queen takes e7 would be a free bishop. And at the minimum, white is up a pawn. At the maximum, there's a checkmate threat very soon with both pieces here. So this is absolutely winning for Hikaru. It says 97%. Again, that's, the number should be huge, way bigger than 97. There's nothing bigger than 100, but it's more like a billion here. It's more like Millionaire Monday. That's what the percentage should read, is just say MM, Millionaire Monday, because that is where Hikaru Nakamura is going.
Now he is going there, and this has been just such a vintage Nakamura display. When he gets into 5th gear in these kind of positions, he's just unstoppable. He plays so confidently, so accurately, he finds the killer blows. That's really what makes him such a special force and talent in the world of chess. If he didn't have the Magnus Carlsen voodoo, if he managed to somehow get over that hump, a lot of people would say that he would easily be world champion. He's matured immensely over the past 2 years. He isn't getting as, he was getting a bit flustered before. He wasn't choosing right opening, excuse me, in my opinion, right openings in certain games, right strategies. But now it seems he's got himself together. He's going to be in the candidates next year. fighting out for a place to play for the World Championship title. But for the moment, he's essentially secured his position in Millionaire Monday, along with Le Quang Liem, Yu Yang and the rank outsider Alexander Lenderman. These guys are going to be battling out for $100,000 tomorrow. And look at this, just playing moves like, no problem at all. Wesley So, head in hands, absolutely devastated. And I think really it's that second game, Robert, when he had the white pieces, he had so much initiative. Oh, that's such a brutal move to make. He took on G6, pawn takes G6. Problem is the knight's hanging on C8 as well. It's time to give it up, Wesley. He played Queen take, well, that's a knight gone as well. I think King H7, he's
This is
trying
brutal.
just anything. Rook H1, no checks because Queen D3 are blocked with the check. And there's a check on H8, so Rook H1, yeah, that's it, that's enough. Wesley So resigns. Hikaru Nakamura through to Millionaire Monday. An impressive display of destruction of Wesley So in the last game. So much chess today, you've got to give him huge credit. Unlucky Wesley So, the winner from last year. He, unfortunately, does not make Millionaire Monday, so we have our final four. Ladies and gentlemen, what a day of chess we've just witnessed.
What a day that is. Everyone congratulating Hikaru. It truly deserves this.